Roberts. This is television's most comprehensive look into the issues important for African-American athletes.
Coming up in our next half hour, a profile of some of our African-American leaders of today and a look at how several young African-American professionals achieved their dream.
If you're a Big East basketball fan, you probably remember the name Mark Jackson. Jackson was the electrifying guard for the St. John's Redmen in the mid-'80s. He's now in his 6th season in the NBA. After 5 years in the Big Apple with the New York Knicks, Jackson packed his bags and headed west as the new floor general of the upstart LA Clippers. This is the Action Jackson NBA fans see. This is the family side of Mark Jackson.
I try to enjoy my family as much as I possibly can. It's tough being an NBA player because you're doing so much traveling. I enjoy writing poetry, but I just really like relaxing and being at home.
It's just a wonderful feeling when I see Mark with him because it's fulfilling for me because it's something I didn't have, and I would hate to see him without his father, you know. And he's such a good father too.
When Mark looks into the eyes of his son, he reflects on the man who influenced him the most, his father.
When I was a youngster, my father told me, don't ever look up to anybody, look at people. And so therefore, my only role model was my father. I watched him provide for 5 kids. I watched him in a relationship with my mother for 35 years. A strong relationship that just like any has its ups and downs, but they believed in one another and really had a lot of love in our family. But I watched him provide for us. I watched him be a leader and set an example for us youngsters. And he was the greatest role model that I could possibly ever have.
Find out who your best 3 contenders, line them all up, I'll whip them all.
The NBA All-Star didn't have any athletic role models per se, but Muhammad Ali's impact outside the ring made a lasting impression.
Probably the one athlete that I had a great love for, that motivated me in life the most, was Muhammad Ali. And that was because as a man that stood firm in what he believed in and really touched a lot of lives in his whole life. And I really have a great deal of love and respect for him.
Mark and his wife, Desiree Coleman, live hectic professional lives, but it's the quiet time at home that is most cherished.
When Mark's home, he makes sure that we do something like go to the movies, go out to dinner, spend quality time together. I think that's really important. Not necessarily that I'm at every game, but that when we are together, it's quality time, it's special moments, it's special, things to do.
I've been very blessed in my life with a tremendous family, tremendous pride and belief. I've been blessed with a great wife and a 1-year-old son, like I said. And these are things that are important to me. And these are the things that continue to motivate me to want more, to become even more successful than I am.
Mark says his family values keep him balanced. He and Desiree realize there is much more to life than the passing fame of professional athletics and show business. Giving back something is far more important to them.
If somewhere down the road, one youngster is touched by something that I say or do, whether it be an interview, whether it be a speaking engagement, wherever I may be, whether I be on the basketball court, if some youngster is touched by something I say and do and changes his or her life because of it, then that would all make it all worthwhile. Because one day down the road, someone may be speaking to my son.
I think when you're yourself, being yourself at all times, not letting the fame and all that comes along with it go to your head, because we're human just like everybody else. And when we're undressed and all the makeup's off and all the lights off, we're just like anyone else. We do the same things. And I think when you keep that keep that in your heart, then you'll be fine, because God is the only man that is perfect.
The NCAA recently honored the best women athletes of 1992. I had the pleasure of emceeing that event, and we'll have all the highlights next. Dee Dee Foster of Alabama.
I think this is Dee Dee's best event. She's a powerful tumbler, but also she's a very good dancer, and her choreography is very unique.
female athletes from every state are nominated for this award, and when they are, the Champion Sporting Goods Company donates $315,000 for women's athletic programs at NCAA member universities. A media panel in each state, plus the District of Columbia and Puerto Rico, then selects the 52 regional NCAA Women of the Year. Their respective institutions then receive an additional $5,000 for scholarships. A second media panel then selects the national award. NCAA President Judith Sweet talked about the importance of this new award.
This award is a giant step in the maturing process for women's athletics. I think that it really sets a standard for young girls and women to strive toward in both their athletic activities as well as in the classroom and through their community.
It's going to be a battle to the wire. Michelle Freeman for Florida, Duhaney for LSU. They're literally neck and neck. It's going to be Duhaney.
She's going to do a double twisting laid out flyway. Let's see if she can stick. Pretty good landing. Great job. She'll score high on that.
Hudak in the middle.
Oh.
Scott puts it away. 2-1, 49ers.
Despite the performances of several African-American athletes, the 1992 award went to the 14-time University of Tennessee All-American swimmer, Catherine Byrne.
I think this is a message to all female athletes, young, especially the young ones, that we need to get involved in sports and that it's okay. You can succeed, you can do well.
Pikes 1 1/4 right to a front support. Great routine.
JB, that was a fantastic evening in Chicago, but I think by looking at that video, you see the African-American participation was minimal at best. Our hope is that we'll see more black representation in 1993.
I'm optimistic, Robin. But you know, there are several people in sports now who aren't superstars, but are living their dream in different fashions. Randy Ayers is living his dream as a head coach at Ohio State University. Ayers is one of the budding stars of the coaching profession, and he hasn't wandered too far from home since high school. Randy was the Ohio Player of the Year in Springfield during the mid-'70s, and in '78, Ayers graduated from Miami of Ohio. This season is Randy's fourth at the helm of the Buckeyes.
Well, I'd always wanted to coach. I think one of the reasons why I selected Miami University was because of their reputation of producing good coaches, and I thought an awful lot of my head coach down there, Darrell Hedrick. I was exposed to a lot of good coaches. I remember having a lot of conversations with Weave Eubank and Darrell Hedrick, of course. Wayne Embry used to come back a lot. Ray Mears was down quite a bit. Bill Mallory. We've had a lot of football and basketball coaches produced at Miami. And while I was down there, I took a lot of coaching classes. I really liked the opportunity to work with young people and watch them grow and develop. And so I've kind of always had it in the back of my mind.
And what's it like for Randy to be a head coach in the Big Ten, one of the preeminent basketball conferences in the country?
I feel very honored to be at Ohio State and in the Big Ten Conference. It's a competitive conference. I think the fact that I spent 6 years as an assistant in the conference, learning the different philosophies of the coaches has really helped me a great deal. But it's a challenge. I won't tell you it's not a challenge every year to go out and coach and compete against the best coaches in the country.
From the college ranks to the NBA, know this young man. He'd be a great American Express commercial. He's Keith Jones, the trainer of the Los Angeles Clippers.
Being the first black, I guess I put a little significance on that. I really didn't realize it, going in. I thought there'd been people before me, but, there wasn't. I don't think it puts any extra pressure on myself other than, what I put on myself to do my job.
Interviewed a lot of trainers and met Keith and had him talk with our doctor and things. Dr. Daly, our team physician, he had high praise for Keith. And just watching him work and inquiring about him, just felt good about the fact that he is the first black trainer in the NBA, but also he's highly qualified and he's an excellent trainer. And we're just happy and fortunate enough to have a trainer like Keith Jones.
Keith has been dreaming about the NBA since high school. But when did he seriously think about being a member of the NBA sports medicine team?
I just wanted to be around sports and just a big kid and wanted to play all the time. So this was a way that I could stay in sports and you know, not be participating, but still be very active in it. And I started in high school, actually. I had a 6-period class, and they gave me a choice of putting up books in the library or working at the school office or having a study hall. And I talked our high school trainer into just letting me hang around the training room, you know, for an hour until baseball practice and everything got started. And I just got into it. I really enjoyed it. I haven't looked back since.
Just a few miles west of the Los Angeles Sports Arena is the law office of Jerome Stanley. Stanley is among a handful of African-American attorneys who also function as sports agents.
Out of 10 guys I grew up with, a couple are dead, a couple are in jail, a few work jobs, and I'm all alone. I mean, out of a group of 10. It's not like I have peers who I've been knowing since I was 8 or 9 years old that are also attorneys or sports attorneys like myself. I mean, but I think that struggle is what helps toughen you for the competition out here in the business world and the professional world.
Jerome is convinced blacks must take the bull by the horns and play the same game whites have played for centuries.
80% of the NBA is black, and 2 or 3 or 4% of the NBA agents are black. If 80% of the NBA was Italian American, 100% of the NBA agents would be Italian American. If 80% of the NBA were Chinese Americans, 100% of the NBA agents would be Chinese American. If 80% of the NBA were Jews, 105% of the NBA agents would be Jews. Only black people can dominate something like that and then exhibit a sheer lack of cultural pride and not bring people up with them. Only this minority ethnic group. And that is because we tend to allow ourselves to be brainwashed by the system.
From the courts to the reporters who cover sports, Roy Johnson was one of the top NBA writers for the New York Times. Roy is now an editor for Sports Illustrated magazine.
There were very few black sports writers who were given what we call prime A beats by most of the newspapers in this country. So at the time, most of us ended up on the NBA beat because it was not considered a prime beat. Baseball was a prime beat. Pro football was a prime beat. And in a lot of college towns, even the college teams were more important than the local NBA team. So we ended up calling the NBA the ghetto of the sports department because there were so many of us who ended up covering the NBA. Well, lo and behold, the NBA becomes the beat to have. And by the mid-'80s, when everyone was talking about how the NBA was fantastic, all of a sudden the white sports writers wanted the NBA beat, but many of us had already cut our teeth and gained our sources and established ourselves as recognized and capable writers on that particular beat. And because of that success, a lot of writers went on to be able to cover other things, such as the NFL and baseball.
Johnson is now seeing the legion of black news reporters gaining a bit. But compared with the preponderance of black athletes in all sports, Johnson still wonders why the percentages aren't even close in the newsroom.
It's all about access and opportunity. It's clear that African Americans have not been given the opportunities that should be availed to them in this industry. It's a tragedy that there's not one black sports editor at a white-owned newspaper in this country. It's a travesty that there are only, I believe, 5 or 6 black sports columnists in this country.
Lionel Hollins, a champion on the Portland Trail Blazers, is now an assistant coach for the Phoenix Suns.
It was difficult because now that you're out there coaching, you're talking, you're not doing so much. And the tendency is for you to want to get out there and try to play and show what you want to do in a demonstration, whereas as a coach, you just need to talk and let the players do all the demonstrating. Plus, there was still that urge to go out there and play and to think that I could still play, especially when I play a few pickup games with some players. And as I've gotten older, I found out that I can't play with these guys anymore. It's the next best thing to playing. You know, as a player, you're out there competing, and as a coach, you're also competing. It's just in a different way. Now you have to take what you've learned and implement it and get the players to understand and do it in such a short space of time, but it's also competitive. Go to work, Big Daddy. Foul. Count it. It's great to be home. I mean, I was away for 10 years, traveling around the country. I lived in Philadelphia and Detroit and Houston, and now to be back home and doing what I enjoy doing, it's great. The same thing that we did to play before when you had the shot. Nobody's guarding you. Chamberlain!
Mark Jackson and the other fortunate African-American athletes of today can thank the pioneers for their hard work in destroying stereotypes which plagued black athletes for 50 years. Charles Harris is an African-American pioneer in athletic administration. After 6 years at Penn in Philadelphia, he was named athletic director at Arizona State in May of 1985. Harris inherited a program riddled with NCAA probation, but he now points with pride to 1990, the year none of the Sun Devil programs was tarnished with NCAA sanctions.
Penn principally had concerns about competitiveness and competitive success. And so what you then look for is the ability to put the right coaches in place and simply build on a strong, rich tradition. And we're able to do that to some extraordinary extent, I think, in some areas. Arizona State, on the other hand, had really all the tools, certainly has the resources, and has a rich, rich reputation. What we didn't have for an unfortunate number of years there was an infrastructure that afforded us the opportunity to focus only on being competitive. We kept tripping over ourselves. We were, for a period there, one of the most penalized institutions in the country by NCAA standards. So here the focus was on developing the infrastructure, which then allows you to be able to go and recruit the kinds of coaches and kinds of athletes that you need in order to be successful at this level.
Harris believes a pro career for most is merely fantasy. His advice to all on the verge of taking that big step to college: use athletics as a vehicle to get an education. Never view a pro career as a lock.
If God gave you those tools, take full advantage of them. But recognize that the ability to be strong or jump fast or run fast or jump high is a short-lived experience. And to the extent that you can use the tool of athletics to achieve longer-term personal goals, like a college degree, you have to do it. You have to seize that opportunity, because someone surely is going to come along who's a little taller, a little stronger, or a little faster. And we are in an expendable society. The one thing no one can ever take away from you is your college degree.
Harris is recommending universities clean up their athletic acts. He says the so-called student athlete is a joke at many large institutions, and that athletic students is what is needed in the 21st century.
Major college athletics is maybe in some ways due for an overhaul. It's certainly due in this next decade for a very, very thoughtful review of every aspect of what we do. But I believe institutions around the country have demonstrated for years that there is such a thing as a student athlete who can be successful both on the playing field and in the classroom, and can ultimately become a leader of tomorrow. I would be deeply saddened to see us ever abandon that thought and go at it in any different way.
In 1972, Fred Snowden made history becoming the first African-American basketball coach at a Division I university. He took over the reins at the University of Arizona in Tucson, quite a change for the Detroit native.
And I felt that I could do a job of excellence, and if I had the time, I was going to be able to build a great program at the University of Arizona. Not to say that I was not a little bit apprehensive would not be truthful, because there were a lot of things that happened around my appointment, being in that situation. A lot of people didn't understand it, first of all, that here's an African-American man heading up a program such as this. And there were threats and innuendos and death threats and all of that I had to endure and deal with. But it was nothing different than what most individuals who happen to move into a path of being the first, and it looks a little different. You deal with a lot of different things. So you steel yourself against it, and you become very focused, and you move ahead, and you try to accomplish the goals that you set for yourself.
Snowden coached at the U of A for a decade. He then entered the corporate world and discovered that pioneering spirit once more.
I look around the country, and you don't find, to my mind, I think there's one African-American or two who are athletic directors at the large major universities. And if you take that on into the pro sport realm, you know, you don't have, in baseball, you have no minority ownership. Football, likewise, you have one partnership ownership with minorities in basketball. So I think there's a tide moving in that direction. But I think until it comes to pass, until it comes to fruition, there's always going to be someone who is going to have to take the responsibility of saying to the board, to the shareholders, whomever it might be, we recommend that this gentleman or this woman become this executive in this particular position. And, you know, being a head basketball coach at a major university is being a CEO of a major business, because it is a major business if it is successful.
Come on, Bo. Come on.
Coming up next time on The Other Side of Victory, it's baseball season, and we'll visit with baseball's newest Hall of Fame author.
The first time you're slapped in the face with racism is probably the most difficult awakening that you'll ever have in anything. I don't care how happy a kid you are, all of a sudden you're slapped in the face with this, and it scares you. I don't care if it happens when you're 5 years old or 20. The first time is very, very difficult to understand.
The players in the old Negro leagues were in a league of their own for decades. Now, at long last, they are getting their due. And we'll follow an up-and-coming minor leaguer who's chasing his major league dream.
Robin, as you well know, chasing a dream can be a wonderful thing, and we hope our viewers have few, if any, pitfalls on the road to their dreams.
As we all know, there are no guarantees in pro sports, and we'll continue to probe the ambitions, hopes, and frustrations of striking it big in the major leagues. I'm Robin Roberts.
And I'm James Brown, and we'll see you next time on The Other Side of Victory.